Hi, it's Carolyn here, and I am excited to share with you some new projects and brand new fabric. I have a brand new fabric collection. It is called Kept. This is a small 12-piece group that I've designed to have a mellow feel that can go with the flow. The designs themselves were inspired by collections of things, shapes of some studio stuff, patterns that I look at in my daily life, and then geometries of some design ideas. The mixture of textures and shape goes from hand-drawn and linear to more bold and geometric. Let's take a look at the coordinates. The coordinates for this collection are intended to broaden the character and the possibilities of what you can do. I've put together a group that will complement Kept, both in terms of texture and color, by including Kona cotton solids, a piece from my basics line, as well as the new Essex speckle. The coordinates can easily mix in with my Kept collection, or they can be a starting point of their own. I always like putting together coordinates that can fit in with the collection, but offer a little more variety as well. Both the full collection as well as the coordinates are being offered as fat quarter bundles. Let's take a look at some of the projects. First, I should say that over the last many months at home in quarantine, I've found myself craving color comfort in both fabric and projects. I think you'll see this as a theme in the projects to follow, and while I look at everything as a group, I think the variety of possibilities is just what many of us need right now. My long leaf quilt is a new design, and it's also a pattern that's coming out later this year from me. If you've seen the 2021 Kona calendar, you might recognize this design as I have another version appearing there. My long leaf project is incredibly versatile. I always love pairing simple shapes together, playing with their scale, and creating an opportunity to explore any possibilities at hand. To me, that's what makes quilting fun. In this case, I first wanted to pull some of my favorite neutrals from the new collection and pair them with a mixture of yellows. I don't know why I'm drawn to certain colors sometimes, but yellow and gray were definitely my muses here. Other fabrics in this project include Kona cotton, Essex linen, and pieces from my basics line, Collection CF. On the technical side, this is a versatile project as well. It can be foundation paper pieced or conventionally pieced together using a new set of acrylic templates. The acrylic templates make it super easy to rotary cut all the pieces, and then it's a matter of placing the different shapes together in a way that is pleasing to you. It feels like you're painting with fabric. If you are planning to foundation paper piece the project, there is a coloring page included, so you could use that coloring page to figure out your strategy by mapping out the colors, mapping out the fabric, and then sewing it up. Clay is a pattern I released this spring. It's one of those projects where you're pairing different shapes and colors together. Anyone could take the same variables and come up with a totally different result. That's something I love in a quilt project. Here I've made the wall-size version of the project, and I started by culling fabrics from Kept, as well as other Kona solids and pieces from the Kept coordinates. I went with pieces I was most in the mood for, which in this case started with the background choice. I like how this print from Kept can feel like a wallpaper, and it was fun to pull other colors and fabrics to cut out for the shapes that go on top. Applique projects are great because you can use any applique technique that you like. I will always love needle turn applique, which is how I made the earlier version of this project, but in this case I really wanted to change it up, and so I used fusible applique with tight rows of quilting on top. Whatever you're comfortable with, just go with it. These next couple of projects are really fun. I'm super excited about them. It's a coat and tote made by Brittany Frey. The coat is made from the Sapporo coat pattern by Paper Cut Patterns, and then the tote is the Sylvie tote by Tote handmade. Quilted coats make a bold statement, and this one is made from the full Kept collection and then its coordinates. It's been patchworked together and then sewn into the coat. It can be made by the fat quarter bundles, and then you just add the lining. I love how these projects showcase the way the collection and the coordinates play together. They come together and they make such a cheerful statement. I don't know why I never think about sewing hats, but they're such a great project and they're really not intimidating at all. Alba Textiles has a couple of hat patterns that I discovered recently, and that's what really got me thinking about making some hats, and I couldn't wait to make some out of the new collection. The first one is made using Elba Textiles' Sorrento pattern, which is a classic bucket hat that you can sew up in several different sizes. I love how the kept print works in this project. I used Essex yarn dyed in graphite on the other side, which I think gives it a great structure and complements the kept print well. The other hat is also by Elba Textile, and it is made from their Serpentine pattern, which has a wider brim for more sun coverage as well as more fabric exposure. In this hat, I used 2 pieces from Kept, which I interfaced both of those layers. Both of these hats make getting dressed really fun, and it makes me think of new ways to mix up and pair together my handmade wardrobe, or they make fantastic gifts as well. On a side note, if you are looking for a great bucket hat pattern for kids, Oliver & S has one that I highly recommend. Pouches are always a great sew. These pouches are made from Anila Hui's Speedy Vinyl Pouches pattern, and they do sew up quite quickly. In fact, it probably took me longer just to pick out the fabrics. Not only are these pouches great for holding all kinds of stuff, both sewing and otherwise, but they also showcase fabrics and prints really well. I used fabrics from my Kept and CF collections to create a cohesive palette to hold all of your goodies. These projects are also great for getting more experience working with vinyl, zippers, and binding. Last but not least is a brand new free project that I have for you, and it is called Ray. The inspiration comes from the classic log cabin motif, which is a quilting favorite. I wanted to blow up the log cabin block to make a quilt, which is just what I did. It is a very simple design, which in my mind lends itself to so much. The possibilities are so vast that I couldn't stop at just one version. I made 3. Okay, I'll admit it, this one might be my favorite, but I'll also admit that this one was a total experiment, and it's the first version of Ray that I made. With my Ray design being basically one big log cabin block, you are adding pieces from the center out. And in this first version, I wanted to create a fabric flow that's guided by that, which is also where the experiment came in. The design works with fat quarters or yardage, your choice. Here I pulled fat quarters from my Kept collection as well as the coordinates, and then I ordered them in a way that I thought might be fun to see play out across the quilt. To tie things together, I used big stitch hand quilting in dark threads in diagonal rows across the quilt. With there being so much play between the various fabrics and colors, I like how this repetitive element brings harmony to the quilt. As I mentioned earlier, I've been finding comfort in color and quilting while in quarantine this year. Simple projects like this have been so appealing to these sensibilities, and I think they are just what we need. After making my first Ray quilt that was basically experimenting with how a set number of fabrics will sew up, my second version takes on a completely different approach. This version is orderly and planned. It reads more like a log cabin in the traditional sense, which is how I've divided one set of colors on one side and another set of colors on the other. With a version like this, it's good to start with the coloring page, just as I did here. I knew I wanted red, orange, pink shades on one side and blue shades on the other. The fabrics are a mixture of pieces from Kept, Collection CF, and Kona solids. I loved the hand quilting aspect so much in my first version that I'm using it here too. Instead of using a really dark thread, I went with a bright orange that I stitched out in straight horizontal rows across the quilt. With the design working its way out from the center, I like considering the binding as the last row of fabric framing the perimeter. Last up is my final version, which might be the perfect middle ground between the first 2 versions. It has its own order as well as its own sense of freedom. Like in my very first Ray quilt, this one started also with a pile of fat quarters. The design uses 18 fat quarters, and so I built out a set that included the full Kept collection, plus a few pieces of Collection CF to make a pleasing spectrum of color. I stacked up my fat quarters by color, and then I cut and sewed them back together in that same order. Like in the first version, it was entertaining to see how everything would play out by the time I got to the end. What's great about this is that you can imagine how different it could look if you ordered the same fabrics, but in a different way. For that reason, I'm really excited to see how others will interpret this project, and especially the collection itself. I am planning to host a video sew-along with Ray in the coming months. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube, blog, and/or newsletter to stay apprised of those updates and announcements. Those are my newest projects that are made with my brand new fabric collection called Kept. Kept is available through Robert Kaufman, and we will have all of the information on the fabrics and projects available on their site as well as mine. But feel free to reach out with any questions that you have. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video and to check out all of the new stuff. I hope that you take care, and I will see you again soon.